So, hope all of you folks are doing well. I know I should have realized, should realize in the U.S. it's Jason. Should realize in the U.S. it's a holiday weekend. So I don't know. Well, actually, we have a fair number of people. Canada, there we go. Canada, it's a normal weekend. The rest of the world's a normal week. Well, is anything normal nowadays? Is anything normal? I ask you. Okay. So let's go over the homework. I should share my screen. Let's just move this over here and share the screen, and we'll go over the exercises that I put in the forum, and then we will do lots of questions, answers, talking, and so forth, which should be great. Oops, we can do this here. Oh, more people in the chat there. Everyone, hi there. All right. Okay, let me just move these things around here. All right, and then I will copy. I would say one of these days I will remember to copy and format this before we actually meet. But you know what? Last session. That's not likely to happen, is it? Let's see, this and this and this, and we'll have that there. It'll be a little ugly, but it'll work. Oh, I see, because I started with spaces. 2, 2, 2, 2. And that becomes much nicer, a bit nicer. Okay. There we go. This should be better. Okay. So the first exercise that I gave you was write a function, gets a directory name, and returns a dict whose keys are the file extensions following the dot, and whose values are the number of files with such an extension. Okay, so this is actually the sort of thing that you might be surprised to hear people actually need to do all the time. I need to find and sort and count the different files that are available. Now you can just count them if you want, but it's often nice to be able to have a function that will not only count one type, but can count a whole bunch of types. So how's this going to work? So I'm going to say here, def, I probably should have named these things, always a mistake of mine. So let's call this, extension counter. And we'll say dir name is the directory name. So our function will get a directory name. It's going to get a string, and it's going to return a dictionary. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to say here, output equals dictionary, and then return output. So our function is mostly doing the right thing now, except for, the actual content. So what are we going to do? Well, we have to actually get the files in the directory. And there are two different modules that we can use for this. And I showed them a little bit last time. One of them is the OS module for operating system, where a ton of file-related things are located. The other one is the glob module, which is designed especially for finding patterns in things. So I'm going to use OS lister here. It's just a lot easier to deal with, especially if we want all the file names in a directory. Glob.glob is great if you want a particular pattern to match a pattern. So I'm going to say here, import OS. If I don't import OS, I don't have access to that module. And that's the difference between what we call built-ins in Python and regular modules in the standard library, things that we download and install. If it's not a built-in, you must import it. You must do this. Just double check something here. Yeah, okay, fine. Just want to make sure my mic is working right. Okay, so now that I have OS, I can say, well, os.listdir of dir name. And that's going to return a string. But who's it going to return it to? What are we going to do with this? Well, it's a list, right? If I say here, print os lister of dir name. So now my function is going to be a little weird because it's going to get this directory name, create a dictionary, ignore the dictionary entirely, print the list of files, and then return the dictionary. But we can at least see it, x counter of, let's do /etc. And you see I get a list of strings back. Pretty good. So why do I care? Because once I have a list of strings, I can put it in a for loop for one file name in os lister dir name. Now what do I want to do? Well, now I want to find the extension. Now I want to find the thing after the dot in the file name. Well, what if it doesn't have a dot? Well, there's going to be a little bit of a mess. So you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to say, let's make sure it has a dot. I'm going to say here, if dot, not in one file name, continue. Meaning, go back to the top of the for loop. And this is how we can throw out bad stuff. By the way, did I ask you to do this? Not really, but that's fine. So now what? Well, now we know that there's at least one dot in there. Probably, not definitely, but probably between some characters. So what I can do now is I can say something like this. Fields, or let's say parts of the file name, I will change that in a moment, equals one file name dot split on dot. I'm now going to use split to break it apart into a list. And it's going to be ugly as can be, right? So if you look at, for example, this kind of file, krb5.keytab. So I'm going to get a list of strings. krb5, first element, keytab, second element. sudoers.d. This is going to be the first element, this is going to be the second element. But guess what? Guess what? That's a list. And if it's a list, then I can grab the last element. If I can grab the last element, that's the extension, and I can count it. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to say this. I'm going to say if, well, let's do this. Let's say extension equals parts of the file name minus 1. Why minus 1? Because I don't know how many they're going to be. I just want to get the last part there. And once I've done that, then I can say here, if x in output. If we have seen this, have we seen this extension before? Then we'll just do output x plus equal 1. We will add to the counter, right? We'll add to how many times we've seen it. And if not, well, then I have to set it up there. Else output x equals 1. So we're either, right, if we have not seen it before, we're going to set it up as 1. And we have seen it before, we're going to add 1. Now, I said I was going to change this, and I'm going to change this because this is ugly as can be. You know what I can do? I can just shave off parts of this. I can say here x equals 1 file name split minus 1. And this line, this one line does all the things I did before. So I get one file name, I split it on dot, I get the last part of that list. And the rest of the list disappears. I don't care about it, I just care about the extension. Let's see now what happens. Well, look at that. We have a whole bunch of different things, many of which occur only once, as you can see. But a few occur a bunch of times. .d occurs several times. System default a bunch of times. Conf appears a whole bunch of times. So we can see here that we can actually write a function, and then as usual with functions, we are going up one level of abstraction. We then, once we have this working, don't need to think about how it works, what it does. We just need to know we hand it a directory name, and we get a dictionary back. Moreover, this function, xcounter, is using another function. It's using a function that doesn't belong to it, that we didn't write. It's using os.listDir, which belongs to the os module. So using a function from a module doesn't need to be a big deal. It doesn't need to be the bulk of our code. It can just be a small part. But you know, that small part is kind of important, and that small part allows us to concentrate on the things that are interesting to us. You know, many companies, all companies, outsource things. They buy things from their suppliers. They can't possibly hope to make everything themselves. And that allows them to focus on their core business. And the same thing is true here. We can focus on our core software, sort of outsource the the function to the module. Right. Questions or comments about this? All right, nothing so far, but hopefully there'll be lots more questions soon. Next up, the random module includes a function, random.choice, that returns a random element from any sequence, including a string. So I can say here, like, import random, and random. Oh, is there any advantage? Krishnendu asks, is there any advantage in using rsplit instead of split? I don't think there is here. Rsplit means like right-hand split, means that if you tell it how many elements you want, so I can say, I think we might mention, like you can say the max split with split, or max times, and you can say how many elements you want to get. And so regular split goes from the left, and everything left over will be on the right. And rsplit goes from the right, everything left over will be on the left. So here in this case, I don't think that there is an advantage. All right, so we're now going to say random.choice of ABC, and we get back B. I can also do it with a list, random choice of 10, 20, 30, and I get 30. So here's what I want. I want to write a function that takes a list. So the argument will be a list. And it's going to choose a random element and ask the user to repeatedly guess which element has been chosen. And when the user guesses correctly, the function returns the number of guesses. So how are we going to do this? We're going to say here, def count guesses. And I'm going to say here, I don't know, how would we say, like things that could be guessed, you know, possibilities. Ooh, that's very exciting. Possibilities. Let's say options. Come on, who says possibilities nowadays? Way too long. All right, count guesses option. That's going to be a list of, let's assume, oh, you know what? We didn't say what it's going to be. Let's assume they're going to be strings. That will make it easier. So now what? Well, now we're going to ask the user how to guess. How many times are we going to ask them? We don't know. We don't know in advance. that means that we're going to need a while loop, because a while loop doesn't know how many times it'll execute. So I'm going to say here, while true, create my infinite loop. We don't know how many times it's going to run. And now what? I'm going to say here, well, we have to choose one of the elements, right? So we're going to say here, right, let's say, chosen equals random dot choice of options. And here I'm mixing together a lot of things, but this is standard. I'm going to the module random. I'm running the function choice inside of random. And so this is a function. This is a function that then takes what? It takes a sequence, options. So random choice is going to choose one element of options and return it. Return to who? Well, we're going to assign it to chosen. So the goal now is for the user to choose the thing that was in chosen. So I'm going to say here now, while true guess equals input, enter your guess. And I'm going to do a little strip here. And now, when are we going to break out of the loop? Only when the user chooses correctly. So I'm going to say here, if guess equals chosen, then we'll say print right. And then we're going to say break. We'll break out of the while loop. If we don't break, what's going to happen? Print wrong. And we go back up to the top of the while loop. And they have to try again. So let's take a look. Oh, we have to actually call the function. So I'm going to say here, count guesses. And I know we haven't done the counting yet. And we can say here, like, A and B and C. So now enter your guess. I'm going to just A. Right. Well, that was pretty easy, eh? Easy A. A again. Right again. This is looking a little, this is looking like a setup. Wrong. Phew. Okay. You guess B. Wrong. C. I got it right. If you want, when debugging this sort of thing, by the way, it's not a bad idea to put in a print so you'll know what's going to happen there. Now, we did everything fine here, right? We chose something at random using random.choice. So again, could we implement some sort of randomizing function, method, whatever, that would then retrieve a random element? Yeah, but why should we have to do that? Why should we have to work so hard? Python provides us with a standard library that will do that. So I'm going to call random.choice on options. We're going to get chosen. We're going to go around and around and around until we got right. But we did not want to just say right or wrong. We wanted to return the number of times that took for the user to guess. So I'm going to say here, count equals 0. And then I'm going to say here, count plus equal 1. And it's going to add to it. Now, why would I set to be 0 here and plus equal 1 here? Aren't they like right next to each other? And the answer is yes, sort of. But I need to set it to something, and then we're just going to go around and around. And every time we go back to the top of the while loop, we're going to add 1 to it. And then I'm going to say return count. So now I can say count guesses. A, right, okay. And it returned 1, which is true. I'm going to call this with a few more, right? D, E, and F. That'll make it more exciting, huh? So A, B. Okay, I think this random number generator seems like me. A, B. One more time, this time with feeling. A, B, C, D. There we go. There we go. So what you can see here is, again, we have a function that wraps up functionality. If I'm going to be doing this a lot in my program, it's great to have the function then. I can call it with options, and this can be any sequence, although we're only checking the strings here. And then this loop takes care of trying again and again and again. So again, was a function call from within random a major part of our program here? No, but it was an important part. And this way we can, again, think of count guesses now as part of an infrastructure rather than the whole thing. Questions about this? And again, there'll be plenty of time for questions, just a little bit. Okay, we'll come back to this if people have questions. All right, so this is a bit harder, but we're trying a bit. The pickle module lets you turn data structures into byte strings and back. Now, I don't remember if we talked about byte strings. Strings in Python contain characters. Characters can be basically any letter character from any alphabet, from any writing system, I should say, people have used. Everything from simple English to Hebrew, Arabic, Russian, Greek, and all the way to like Chinese, Korean, Japanese, and even emojis and so forth. They're all part of this whole what are called Unicode characters. And Python can handle them all, or just about all. But when we have to transmit things over the network, they have to be put sort of back into their native form, which are byte strings. So you don't need to worry about byte strings. I mean, if you want to, you can talk about them, but like, don't worry about them too much. The thing is, Pickle allows us to take any Python object, turn to a byte string, and do the reverse, take a byte string and put it back into an object. Why would I want to do this? Because maybe I want to store it on disk. Maybe I want to send it over the network. So you can actually create some data, send it over the network to another Python program, and that program will be able to unpack that data or Pickle load the data. So let's see how this works. And the point here was not to introduce you to the wild and woolly world of byte strings. It was rather to show you how you can just use a function from a module, and it kind of works. You don't need to even know that much. Don't tell anyone, but you don't have to know that much in order to use it. So how am I going to do this? I'm going to say import Pickle. And by the way, Pickle is a really cool module that comes with Python. It's come with it for years. And then I'm going to say here d equals a1, b2, let's say c. All right, this is a test, and d is going to be 10, 20, 30. So I have my dictionary here. So far, so good. And now I'm going to say, let's do this. B equals pickle.dumps of d. Now, what did that do? Basically, the pickle.dumps function looks at d and says, aha, I know how I can turn this data structure into something that maybe a human won't understand what's going on there, but another computer will. And indeed, if we look here at what B is a byte string. This is not meant to be readable by people. You can see some little characters here that are part of it. But for the most part, like A1, B2, and they've used newer and newer versions of Pickle and newer versions of Python. And so it used to be they were pretty readable textually. Now you can see not so much. So the point of this exercise was not to say, look, I can turn to a byte string, but rather to say, once I've gotten a byte string, I can use another Pickle function, load s, to get it back. And if I say here, also a d equals pickle.loads from b. And now if I say also a d, what do we have? Look at that. It's our dictionary back. Meaning we are able to take a dictionary, turn it into something that can be stored on disk or transmitted over the network, and then undo that as well. And this is all possible thanks to the Pickle module, this module that comes with Python, which really handles all of this sort of complexity. And so again, the point was not to learn Pickle. The point was to show you that even if you don't have a really, really clear idea of what a module does, but someone says, oh, you can use this, the same sorts of techniques are going to happen again and again. We're going to import the module. We're going to use some functions on the module. The functions are going to get some data, and we're going to get some data back. Right? At the end of the day, it's a lot of the same things, even if they're doing different things. Do different things. Miron asks, with the count guess, can you add a number like a stack of cards and minus the amount of that card from the stack? So do I understand basically you want to give them a limited number of guesses, or you want they can only guess something they've not guessed before? That's going to be my guess, as it were. Right? Each time you guess, it better be something new that you've not tried before. We could certainly do that. Right? Here, we sort of gave people free reign. They could enter whatever they wanted as a guess. So, but you could definitely sort of reduce again here. Let's try this. We do this a slightly different way. So what if we say here, instead of just enter the guess, right? Let's say, so it's sort of like a hangman game almost, right? Where where you could try again and again to answer, and each time you have fewer and fewer options. So I'm going to hope and assume that was more or less what you want to do. Let's see if I can do this on the fly in just a few minutes, and if not, then I apologize. So let's see, what do we want to do here? Let's already do this. Let's try this. Already guessed equals a list. Okay, so what are we going to do here? We're going to say enter your guess. If guess equals chosen, right? So here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to say here, if guess in already guessed, and we say print, you already guessed, guess, try something new. And then we're going to do a continue. Okay, so if you've already guessed A, you can't guess A again, or you can, but it's not going to count against your, well, I guess it will count against the number. You know what we can do? We can be sneaky. We say count minus equals 1. And that'll neutralize the count going up there. Not necessarily the best way to go, but fine. Okay. But then we have to actually add things. So I'm going to say here, I'm going to say then guess, or we're going to say, sorry, already guessed, append of guess. I'm also that, no, I actually don't need to change anything in options. So watch this. If I now say, let's do this, count guesses of, let's do this, you know, A, B, C, D, E, and F. So I'm going to say here A, B, and that was right. Okay, very good. Let's try, you know, I'm going to print the chosen here. Print. Don't, you know, do not tell the user, but the secret is but chosen equals. Let's do that. Okay, so now I'm going to run it. And don't tell the user, but the chosen is E. Okay, so I'm going to say A, wrong, B, wrong, C, wrong, E, wrong, and we get back, or right, and we get back 4. But what if I do something similar here, B? So I'm going to say here, C, D, 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 B. And it's going to return 3, C, D, and B, 3 choices. So the fact that I chose D again and again and again does not count against us. So I think that's sort of in the direction of what you were asking about. Oh, with the count guess. In fact, so you were asking like minus the amount of the card. So I think this was sort of in the direction. I hope it was a reasonable answer. But you can totally do this sort of thing with whether they're cards or numbers or whatever. Okay, so for those of you who arrived maybe a little later, we I don't remember or do remember, we're going to be doing Q&A today. Where did I put it? So if you have any questions at all that you want me to answer, just put them in the Q&A thing rather than in the chat. That way I can sort of go through and mark what I've already answered. I also got some questions from people via email that I'll be answering. And I hope I'll get like lots of questions, and you don't really need to see my like Zoom thing here. Okay, so first question from Chat Cook. Any suggestions about converting Java code to Python? Specifically, the code is for attending long-term, years, remote data collection, 10-minute intervals on a small battery-powered device that also sends occasional transmission of collected data over a weekly wireless link to data storage. So what it sounds like you have is like a little box somewhere, all right? And this box, you put it out somewhere, maybe even for research or whatever. It's got like sensors on it, or it's collecting data. And it needs to be able to stay there for an awfully long time. And once for years. And every 10 minutes, it's gonna, I don't know, take the temperature, take the air quality, whatever it is, and send it back over a wireless network link to a computer somewhere. So converting this from Java to Python. So when you're talking about converting code from one language to another, the actual conversion can be really painful. If you think of it as a conversion project, if you think of it in terms of, right, I want to go line by line or function by function or class by class. But if you think of it in terms of a product functionality, if you think of it in terms of like, okay, we've got a black box there. We've got a box that we don't know how it works. We don't care how it works. We just care that once every 10 minutes we get data from it. So if you go in as almost like a new project, so what would that system have to be able to do? Well, it'll have to be able to read whatever reading you're getting. And you're also do the data collection and also be able to connect to the network. Python can almost certainly do that. And it could even be like 100 lines of code or even less. So now, is that wise? Maybe. If we were starting the project from zero, I would definitely say, well, you know, clearly Python's gonna be a better bet here than Java. Java is great for certain things. Java is great if you have a very large team and if performance is really important, and or if you need to access other objects, libraries, APIs in the Java world. But for something like this, Python seems like a no-brainer almost. And now you might say, well, but what if it runs out of memory on occasion? Come on, it's really going to run out of memory. And you can run testing on this. You can put lots of memory. I wouldn't worry about that too much. So I would say you can definitely like redesign such a thing to be written in Python and rewrite it. But converting, and I might be catching you on the wrong word here. Converting, I'm not so sure whether that's the right thing. But I would say Python would not be a bad thing to do there, especially since in the case of this sort of box, you're going to want to have it small. It's going to be unattended. That's a key thing. So you don't want to break. And you would just want, and if you would need to upgrade, you should be able to upgrade it easily. Yeah, it seems like a reasonable thing for me, from my perspective. All right, let's see. All right, next up. Oh, I see it's doing like top to bottom. So, okay. So Seth asks, let's say I make a guessing game. Is there any way to send it to someone via email for that person to open and use it without having a Jupyter notebook? Okay, so this gets to how do we actually execute programs in Python? Jupyter is amazing and wonderful and delightful in many ways, but it is not how actual Python programs are written, or even if they're written this way, it's not how they're executed. What happens is you'll take this program, stick it into a file, and then that file has to be executed. And if you're thinking, oh, like a .exe, well, sort of. A .exe basically knows how to run itself on your computer, or if you're on a Mac, just like an app of some sort, or if your phone, an app of some sort. Python programs actually need the actual language in order to run. There's no such thing as running a Python program without having Python on your computer somewhere. So if you have a program written in Python and you want your friend or colleague to be able to run it, you can email them the program, right? You can email them the text of what you wrote. But they're going to need Python on their computer in order for that to work. And that seems like a bit of a bummer. A heck of a lot of different kinds of computers now come with Python or have it available. Windows now has it available. Mac certainly have it available, although there's talk about them getting rid of it. Seems kind of weird to me. Linux certainly has it available. And so there's also something called PyInstaller, which I looked at and I wrote an article about 2-3 years ago, I think, in Linux Journal. I think it's improved a dramatic amount since even then. And PyInstaller is designed to create regular old applications. So you write in Python, you hand it to PyInstaller, and out comes an executable that people can then run on their computers. So I think that might be the direction you're going in. But it's hard, like it's annoying, and that initial sort of bootstrapping is annoying as well. It's way easier in many ways to have Python run on a server somewhere where you know what the environment is, you know it's going to be logging in. That's why web applications have been such a great marriage with Python. Okay, hopefully that answers it. I'm going to click that off here. Good. Click. All right. So Krishnendu asks, I would like to learn about class. What's the best option? Well, I am a very classy guy. Okay, you're going to miss my jokes. All right, or maybe not. So I assume what you're talking about is like object-oriented programming. Oh, and then you have a second question here, another question. What is OOP? Is there anything we've learned so far? I'm going to combine these two things together because they're basically the same question. So we've seen how to write functions, and we've seen how to create variables. And all that is fine, and that is a set of it's a sort of a way of writing code that's known as procedural programming. And procedural programming basically means we're going to write a bunch of functions, we're going to create some data, and then we're going to call the functions on the data. What could be easier? And the problem is you end up with tons of functions and tons of data, and it ends up being what's known as spaghetti code, where everything refers to everything else, and heaven help you in trying to manage it. So if you write better functions, yes, it's easier. If you divide things into modules, yes, it's easier. But at the end of the day, people have been trying to figure out how to organize their code better so it'll be more readable, easier to work with for literally decades. And so in the 1970s and in the early 80s, this guy named Alan Kay came up with a new system, new paradigm for writing software known as object-oriented programming. Sometimes abbreviated as OOP or OO. And object-oriented programming basically says, let's turn things around. As Steve Yegi, who I think works at Google now, as he mentioned at some point, wrote, instead of being a verb-oriented language, it's now a noun-oriented language. So when you're working with objects, you're thinking in terms of the nouns, you're thinking in terms of the data that have functions attached to them. These are the methods that we invoked here. Methods exist in Python because Python is an object-oriented language. Now, we haven't written in an object-oriented way so far. But basically, like you can use objects and you can write them. What is involved in objects? Objects basically mean we're going to create new types of data. And those new types of data are called classes. So when you're writing using object-oriented programming techniques, so you're writing classes and you're writing methods. And you're then creating objects of those new types. So string is a class, list is a class, dict is a class, and we're always creating new instances, new objects of those types. And so object-oriented programming says, what we can do is we can create our own classes, and then our programs become much easier to maintain. And there's a whole, like people will teach you all sorts of large, long, complicated things about objects. In many languages like Java, C#, C++, objects are incredibly complex. And in Python, they're not. You do need to understand some of the like theory behind it. You do need to understand some of the terminology, but at the end of the day, it's a way of writing your code so it's easier to read, easier to understand, easier to maintain. So that's answers to those two questions here. Okay. Let's see, answer live here. Okay. Randy asks, have you ever written any Python socket code looking to control a small Raspberry Pi program over a wireless network with telemetry feedback? Any pointers to learning about sockets? Okay. So we saw how we can read from and write to files a few weeks ago, and we've been playing with files ever since. And so working with files is really, really easy. And about 30 or 40 years ago, some people, I think it was at University of California, Berkeley, from UCB Unix, they said, what if we made reading from and writing to the network as easy as working with files? And they call those sockets. And sockets have basically been a standard part of networking for decades. Everyone uses sockets all the time. Even if you don't know you're using sockets, Like your web browser is using sockets to connect. That HTTP, that's the hypertext transfer protocol, right? It's a protocol, but it has to connect somehow to other computers. That's using sockets. And so at the end of the day, be able to use sockets means communicating over a network. So I have written some Python socket code, not a ton of it, but a little bit. And Python actually comes with, here, let's look at the, oops, let's go here to python.org. And if I go to the documentation, the standard library, documentation, docs, in the standard library reference, we have socket, low-level networking interface. And so if I go in here, I look at sockets, it will show me how I can create a new socket object, and I can retrieve things and so on and so forth. Now, that said, if you haven't ever worked with sockets before, the syntax is going to look bizarre because there's all this like low-level stuff you need to do. This is what it looks like to create a socket program. Import socket, fine, we've done that. Like, who am I connected to? What port am I connecting on? And then you have all this weird stuff like get address info. It just goes on and on and on. I believe somewhere there's a slightly higher level system, but I'm not convinced of it. And so you just need to sort of get used to this where you're reading from a file, but that file's not a file, it's a network. And you're writing to a file, but that file's not a file, it's the network. You also need to worry about byte strings and strings, right? Whether you're dealing with bytes or dealing with characters. But if you can get over those humps, you can 100% do it. Now, learning about sockets, where can you do that? I actually don't know. I have been trying off and on to do lots of stuff in the Python standard library on my YouTube channel. I didn't even get close to sockets. I'm hoping to restart a lot of that next week when I have a bit of free time. But it's going to take a while for me to get to sockets. So I would say if you look at, and I'm going to put this in the chat here for everyone to see, if you look at the socket documentation, it might help you along. You can basically copy the code that they have there because everyone does that. And that'll at least get you an initial sort of direction toward there. All right, Randy, hope that was helpful. Okay, Larry asks, how do we call Python programs from HTML or JavaScript? Okay, so let's say I have a Python program. Well, there's so many different ways to sort of address this question. So let's say I have a Python program, and I want to call it from another program. Like I want to execute it. How do I do that? And so typically, if you have a program and you want another program to execute it, you can do that, right? There are things called exec and fork and so forth in at least the Unix world. In fact, when you run a program from the command line, that's what your computer is doing. So your computer is doing this whole fork and exec business and then running the program. So the problem is, can you do that from HTML? And the answer is not exactly, because HTML isn't really a programming language. HTML is the way that stuff on the web is displayed to us, the hypertext markup language, which has gotten enormously complicated over the years. So I don't know if you can really call a Python program from HTML. What you can do is have your HTML include a hyperlink. And the link, when you click on it, can then bring you to a Python-powered website, or just get data back from Python. So HTML, not so much, maybe with a link. JavaScript gets more interesting. So you cannot really, as far as I know, on the same computer, even if they're both running, have JavaScript call Python, or vice versa. That's not really going to work. But JavaScript can communicate over the network. You can communicate over the network using something known as WebSockets. And you can then set up a Python server behind a WebSocket that they can communicate. People do this all the time, right? When your web browser is showing a page, it's actually reporting all sorts of things. If you go into Google Maps, right? Google Maps is reporting all sorts of information about who you are, where you are, what you're doing all the time back to Google headquarters. And so that could be done with, it has to be done with JavaScript if it's in the browser, and it can be sent over a WebSocket, say, and then the server in the back end can be running Python and can do something there. All right, so hopefully that helps to make it a little bit clearer. All right, let's see. Krishnendu asks, where can I get some practical projects to practice my Python skills? I mean, full projects. For example, designing a customer database. So there's no one answer to this question. A very common, popular, and I think good answer to this question is join an open source project. Open source, as you might know, means basically that the code that's used, that we've written, that is written and is executed, is available for anyone to read, modify, and update. And open source projects are community-based, which means that they hope that enough people will volunteer to help them out, that the project will continue and go forward. So there are literally thousands, tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands of open source projects that would be delighted to get help from additional people. And typically you start off doing simple stuff, updating documentation, fixing some basic bug reports. And then over time, as you sort of become more accustomed to how the project does things, you get into more and more serious things. So if you want to do a full project, like a customer database, what you can do is try to find an open source project. And typically those are like technological tools rather than end user solutions, but there are some exceptions. And go find one that's like of interest to you and join it. And by the way, here's the great thing. If they're nice to you and you learn a lot, you stick at it and lots of people benefit. If they're mean to you or you don't like it, then like leave. And I wish there were like a list of open source projects looking for things, looking for help. I can't think of one offhand. I'm going to write this down. Someone should do that. Maybe I should do that. Yeah, because I don't have enough to do. Let's see this. Hold on, I'm just going to write this down here. An open source project looking for help. But it requires a bit of detective work. It requires looking around, and I wish that I had a better answer there. Okay, so that's that there. Ronnie asks, what's the next step if I'd like to find a job with the beginner skills, or should I earn more skills before? If so, what do you recommend? So there's no, once again, there's no perfect answer here. So every job will always say, we want some, the programming language came out yesterday, and they're looking for people with 10 years of experience, right? Preposterous. So every company always wants people with more experience. The more you know, the better. But if they only wanted like perfect, fluent Python developers, they'd be like out of business. So everyone has to compromise a bit. And so I'd say what we've done here is a great start. There is no measure for when you are ready. What I would say though is that you want to be sort of ready to solve problems in a particular domain, right? Programming is a tool, or programming is a set of tools. And so being able to say, I can program in Python, that's useful, but to do what? So what it might be nice to do is focus on one aspect. I can program in Python and do system administration. I can program Python and write little web applications. I can program Python and do some data science. Now, if you're saying to myself, oh my God, this wasn't enough, I also have to learn data science, I also have to learn system administration. No, you can sort of specify and go in one direction, and you don't have to be an expert in any of these. And it also depends on the company. There are always going to be companies looking for lower level, intro level people, or people who have limited Python skills. Or again, if you're using Python to do something else, right? Like you're not just using Python to write Python, you're using Python to do something. So let's say you know about cars, right? So let's say there's a car company that, I mean, this is obviously a bit of an abstract example, car company that is going to use Python. So you might be weak on the Python knowledge, but you'll be very strong on the car knowledge, and you can apply that knowledge using Python. I mean, I do a lot of sort of work with freelancers. I do coaching, and I've run a podcast for years doing this. And what we often say is that in order to be a successful consultant, you don't need to be the smartest, most expert person in the room with the technology. You do, though, have to be communicative, nice, easy to work with. Those are way more important. Now, I'm not saying no skills, like no Python skills will be to get to a great job, but it's also going to go up and up and up over time. I always say, like I probably said in this course, that learning a programming language is like learning a language. And there's no point where you say, aha, I'm fluent, right? It's not like flipping a switch. I was not fluent, now I am fluent. It's a gradient, and it's going to change over time. I am still, you saw it in this course, I'm still constantly learning new things about Python, about programming, about myself, about techniques, all sorts of stuff. That will continue. So I would say after this course, you definitely want to get a little more experience. But within a few months, if you're looking to get a different job, even poke around and see what people want, you can almost certainly do it. Okay, hopefully that will help. Let's see. So let me just mark this off as done. So Seth was saying someone was looking for projects. I've been enjoying the challenge of Project Euler at projecteuler.net. It requires math and coding knowledge using any programming language. Yeah, I've heard of that. So I will tell you also, I have a website called practiceyourpython.com. And I've tried to collect all the places where you can, well, practice your Python. I'll put this in the chat as well. And practiceyourpython.com lists books, and yes, it is somewhat self-serving and lists my stuff as well. Books, free services, and paid services. But I've tried to be nice and list all the ones that are out there. And so you can try to find, is Project Euler there? It's not there. Oh my goodness. Oh, it is. Shoot. Okay. Oh, I was typing the wrong window. So you can definitely go there, poke around. Some of them are free, some of them better, some of them worse, to try to improve your Python fluency. And I'll have more to say about that in a little bit as well. Okay, TJ asks, would you continue to keep recordings available of past sessions for future versions? Yes, these recordings will be available forever, as far as I know. As far as I'm concerned, they are there for you. If you have friends, colleagues, other people who are interested, you can totally 100% point them to this course. And even though we won't be doing live sessions, absolutely positively let them, tell them about it. And you can go back to it and refer to it as well. That would be totally fine and great. Okay. Oh, so I see in the chat, Larry asked a question about the Humble Bundle. I will talk to you about that in a little bit. Let me answer some questions from email. And if people have more questions, feel free to put those in the Q&A as well. So Robert says, most of the exercises we've seen are standalone problems. How can we integrate a Python program to a big system like an ERP where we need a lot of register for suppliers and customers and products and raw materials? We can assemble the whole system with just Python, or can we also use, for example, Excel? So there is no one answer to this question. So let's say you're working in a company with an ERP system and you want to add or modify some functionality to that ERP system. Maybe that ERP system supports Python, in which case you can make the modifications using Python. But quite possibly the ERP system is going to use its own special language, in which case you're sort of stuck using it. Or maybe the ERP system has what's known as an API, meaning you can write a program that will talk to it over the network. It might be on the same computer, but it'll pretend to be on the network. And then basically it'll connect and you can control from there. So that's one possibility. Another possibility is starting something from scratch, right? You could certainly build that in Python. So how do you go about doing that? Well, building big projects takes a long time. And you might be familiar, those of you who work in computer companies have probably heard the term agile development, which has gotten a terrible reputation in the last 10, 15 years, terrible. And here's what agile development is all about. It used to be that if it was a big project, first they would come up with the specifications, right? Like I would describe to you what you should do for the homework assignments. So there'll be like this phone book, for those of you who remember what a phone book is, super, super thick book listing all the specs. And then the programmers would go off and work on it for a year and come back and say, okay, it meets the specs. And then they go through and discover that no, it does not meet the specs. Or the specs were vague, or they were wrong, or things changed, or what do you know? And so then spend another year going back and doing this. And agile development basically says, stop. Stop creating all these specs far in advance. Let's have frequent communication. Let's talk about it all the time. And if we need to change either the specs or the code, we will do that. So why am I telling you this? Because agile development puts an emphasis on doing things little by little. You do a little bit to move forward closer to what you want, and another little bit to move forward closer to what you want. And every day, every hour, you're getting a little bit closer, a little bit closer, a little bit closer. So can you build an ERP system? Yeah, but it's going to take a long time, probably a lot of people. So start with a little bit that you need. And this is true for every project and any project. You start with a little bit, you build and build and build. And I would say there are two basic philosophies of programming. There's the top-down approach, where I write a function, and then it lists what I want to do. And those are sort of dreams that I need to fill in the blanks. The other way is bottom-up, where I start off with little functions that do the low-level stuff, and I build on top of them, on top of them, on top of them. I tend to do more bottom-up stuff, but sometimes I'll sort of do both. Okay, Rajesh asks, you'd like to know the business model of the Python tools packages being used in commercial products. So Python is open source. How are IPs, intellectual properties, protected? How safe is it to be saved from legal complications once the product or company becomes successful? For example, Oracle bought Java and are now targeting the Android platform. This is a great question. So Python is open source. I mentioned this already, but what does that really mean? It means, well, let's try this. When you buy software, when you are not really buying it in most cases, you are licensing it. You have been given the license to use Microsoft Word or PowerPoint or Keynote or whatever it is, and you're allowed to use it on one computer, and you're allowed to use it like, only within the context of this and this and this, all sorts of licensing things. Open source software also has a license, but the license is way, 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 way more permissive. The license is, here's the software, do with it whatever you want. Oh, and if you want to modify it and distribute the modifications, bully for you. So open source still has licenses, but it's a dramatically different system. Wait a second, if anyone can modify it, and if I'm able to download it for free, then who's writing this stuff? Like, who are the suckers who are writing open source software and distributing it for free? What's the business model here? That's basically Rajesh's first part of his question. And the answer is, it's extremely, extremely varied. So in the case of Python, a lot of the core developers are just volunteers. They are consultants, they are coders at companies, and they want to make Python succeed. So they will use their spare time, or they'll take off a day or two a week from their consulting, and they will work to improve Python. But there are thousands of people who are working on Python at a given time, and I mean the core language. There are tens of thousands of people, hundreds of thousands of people working on other things in the Python ecosystem. And so each of them has their own motivation for doing it. Some of them are trying to improve their skills so they can get a better job. Some of them just love Python and want to see the system improve. Some of them are actually paid by their workplace to work on Python part of the time. So I met someone at PyCon last year who works for Amazon. And basically Amazon sees Python as vital to what they do. So they gave this person 2 days a week to work on Python stuff. They say, yes, we'll pay your full-time salary, but only do Amazon things 3 days a week, do Python stuff 2 days a week, because at the end, it will benefit Amazon. So you have places like that, people like that. So that's who's doing it. But that still doesn't answer the question of like, what's the business model here? And there is no business model. It's like a nonprofit. Python is a nonprofit organization. In fact, the Python Software Foundation, which runs it, is a nonprofit organization. And all they want to do is make sure that Python is maintained and gets out to the most people possible. Now, Rajesh mentions, like, do we have to worry about this? Because Google bought Sun, and Sun owned Java. And Sun was like, open source, everything is great, everyone loves each other. And then Oracle bought Sun, and now has the license to Java, and is beating everyone over the head, saying, oh yeah, it's open source, but we can still mess around with you. They did something similar with MySQL, a well-known open source database. And so it's a problem, right? It's a problem, but it's not a problem in Python. It's not a problem in Python because no company is involved. It is a nonprofit, and that's why they established the Python Software Foundation, to make sure that no company can be in charge of it. You will never have these rights taken away from you. And so if you want to include Python in a commercial product, go for it, you're allowed to. You want to include Python in an open source product, go for it, you can do that. There's no danger whatsoever in using Python, and that someday someone's going to come and try to collect money from you. Now, the modules, the packages on PyPI, that's a slightly different story. Oops, wrong window. Every package on PyPI has a license. Let me just open up a few here. And you'll see the licenses are different. They're all open source, right? So this is the MIT license. Yay, MIT. And this is also the MIT license. That's a good day for MIT. Wow, a lot of them. Oh, and here we have the GNU Affero General Public License, the most complex of the bunch. So basically, these licenses each say slightly different things about what you can do with the code. Can you modify it? Always. Everything on PyPI is open source. What happens when you distribute it? That's the big question. And so if you're working in a company and you use something from PyPI on your project, just double check that the license doesn't conflict with your company's rules. The big problematic one is actually the GNU General Public License, and especially, oh my God, this is one like companies will go bananas over, the GNU Affero General Public License, which means that basically this is like the most hardcore of the open source. You can use it for whatever you want. You can do with it whatever you want, but it must remain open source, and anything that uses it becomes open source as well. And that's where companies get really nervous because they don't want their commercial code to suddenly become open source. Okay, I think I had one more question from email. So Kaylin asks, any tips for finding jobs or freelance work as a Python beginner? Many job adverts say they require experience. Yeah, it's not easy and it's not fair. So first of all, Python is so ridiculously in demand now that I think you will, and I realize the economy now is totally wacky, right? That so many people are hurting and so many people are out of work and so many people are like, what do I do now? And some of those people I hope will learn coding skills and be able to get jobs because I do know companies are hiring. They are hiring, like I've been teaching courses over the last few weeks and people have in my online courses that I've been given for companies around the world, right? They have been hired and started working all from home. So companies are desperate for people with coding skills. Low-level, earlier beginner coding skills, less desperate. And it's harder to find those things. It's harder to find companies that will make the adjustment. So the more you can do to prove that you know what you're talking about, the better. So working on an open source project, again, I know I sound like a broken record, but like that is a great way to sort of prove yourself and to get your name out. Maybe writing a bit can help. And also just talking to people. I'll also say, so there is and I've never actually interviewed for a job or looked for a job there, but there are a bunch of places where you can look online for jobs, and they often look for Python jobs. And I also know, I'm just gonna news.com. So there's a forum called Hacker News, and once a month, on the first of each month. So I of course like missed it by 3 days or something. Let's see if I can just say, I'm gonna search here. I've never tried this before. If I search for hiring. Right, so they usually have like a who's hiring. Let's see, stories for, let's do like in the last week. Here we go, who is hiring, July 2020. So if you go to Hacker News the first day of every month, it says who is hiring, and they'll say like, what they want, jobs, and let me just look for Python here. So we're looking for Python. Typically they're looking for Python plus other stuff. Now it could be that Hacker News is the 100% wrong place to go for beginner jobs. I could be totally wrong. But like, look around, talk to friends. I would also say another great place is go to meetups. Like if you go to a user group, a meetup, a group meeting, whatever you want to call it, or conference. And I realize a lot of these are online now. Companies that are looking to hire go to these things. They go to meetups, they go to conferences. PyCon always had what's known as a job fair, where companies that were looking for Python people, they were there saying, please come to us, we want to hire you. Nowadays, companies are still looking to hire, and I'll tell you, EuroPython is in a few weeks. I should probably prepare my talk. PyCon Africa is in like next month. There are all sorts of meetups, there are all sorts of groups. Talk to the people there. Go to the job fair there and interview. Oh, where can you see the recordings? Absolutely. So N asks, can I say where you can find the recordings? It's all on your dashboard. I'm going to send a follow-up email message in like a few days, summarizing everything, and I will definitely put a link to where you can get the recordings there as well. So don't worry, that will be there. Oh, and Mal writes, the question of where to find open source to contribute to. Oh, look at this. Wow, this is fantastic. I never saw it. So I'm going to just like copy this because we only sent to all panelists. I'm going to paste this in here. That is fantastic. Wow, goodfirstissue.dev, firsttimesonly.com, and opensauce.pizza. Fantastic. Oh, I'm going to have to look at this. First times only. Let's do some open source. Oh my God, this is amazing. This is so amazing. Now, thank you. This is really great. I'm going to have to dig through this, and don't tell them, but maybe I'll, anyway. Here's the sad fact. I do so much writing and talking and teaching about Python. I don't actually do that much contributing to open source. So a little embarrassing, but true. And I guess I try to be a good guy in other ways. Another question: create a GUI application with Python. Any good tools? Okay. So here's the deal with GUIs. So if you want to write a GUI, if you want to write a program that actually has like buttons and windows and does the mouse thing and all that other stuff, you need a library. You need a module that will allow you to do that. Some modules, one module comes with Python, and that module is tkinter. And tkinter has the advantage of being very stable, very easy to learn, easy for GUIs, and cross-platform. It works on Linux, it works on Mac, it works on Windows. The disadvantage is that it looks equally ugly on all platforms. So you can abuse your users no matter what kind of computer they're using. So if you want to do a GUI just for yourself, I would say use tkinter, just like go for it. I have something in my newsletter where I write about GUIs, and that tends to get a lot of people like very riled up. If you haven't seen it yet, you will see it in a few weeks. The newsletter is evergreen, so everyone sees each issue at a slightly different date. And so my recommendation is generally not to do a GUI. My recommendation is generally to rather do a web application, because everyone now has web browsers everywhere, on their phones, on their computers, everything. Shoes will soon be coming with browsers as well. And so if you do a web application, you don't have to worry about all the GUI stuff. It works cross-platform, and you've learned skills that might be a little annoying to learn, HTML and CSS and JavaScript and setting up a web server, but then you can do all sorts of things, not just GUI stuff. So that's what I wrote in my newsletter, and boy, do I get feedback. A bunch of people say, yeah, that's exactly right. But a bunch of people are like, no way, you should use, and then they mentioned some library I should use. I got very, very strong recommendations for Qt, or Qt3 and PyQt3. Qt3 is a well-known module. You can download it from PyPI, you can install it. And the person who wrote to me about this said, it's really easy, it's like web development. Since I've been doing web development for a long time, it actually sounds pretty easy. I have not yet had a chance to download, I downloaded and installed it, but I haven't had a chance to actually do anything with it. I take his word for it that it's easy, and I'm gonna try to play with it, but I don't know. Part of the problem is that the power of open source, like Python, is in the community. And so if you want to have a big community, so you have a critical mass of developers and bug fixes and bug reports and users and everything. So let's take the whole world of Python. I'm going to assume that 90% of it does not do GUI stuff. So we now are down to 10% of the Python world. Now remember that we have like 10 different ways of doing GUIs in Python. So we have, PyQt, we have tkinter, we have, FX, I think, we have WX Windows, on and on, lots of different ways to do it. And so that community is then broken down into sub-communities, and none of them is that huge. It sounds, again, from what I got from my correspondent, from my subscriber, that the Qt community is very strong and does a great job. If so, power to them. But I would just double check how strong the community is before you go into a certain direction to discover, oh, no one's fixing these bugs, no one's around to answer questions. Okay. Oh, wait, here we go. That's a lot done. All right, I seem to have gotten through all the questions people had. Any other questions people have? Personal problems they want to discuss. All right, so while you're like thinking, advice about error checking. Yeah, don't make mistakes. That's the easiest way. No, okay. So yeah, I'll talk about the Humble Bundle just above there. So error checking. So what you can do in Python and many other modern languages is what's known as exception handling. So like if I say here, x equals 10, 20, 30, and then I say print x of 99999, clearly that's gonna give me an error, right? Index error. So I can say, okay, I'm gonna try to trap for that. So I can say like try this, and then except if we got a problem, print, hey, I found a problem. You should address it. This is like the simplest, stupidest form of exception handling, but it works because my program won't blow up. Instead, basically, I've managed to say I've got a problem. Now, you don't want to do this in a real program. You want to figure out which exception you're going to trap. You want to print the message somewhere. It's going to be much more sophisticated than this. But this is the general framework we would use for error checking. The thing is, this only checks for one kind of error. There are other kinds of errors you could have. You could call a function with the wrong kind of argument. That's kind of annoying, right? You don't have to do error checking for all that. You could, yeah, that's like a big one. So it could be that your program works, but only under certain circumstances, that maybe you need to try a whole lot of different inputs to make sure. So what we've seen is a whole, I don't want to say parallel industry, but a whole section of the computer industry is now dedicated to, what was I going to say, testing of software. Let's write a function, and then let's write a function that runs that function with a lot of different inputs. And when it runs with different inputs, it says, I expect to get this, I expect to get that, I expect this to fail. And so software testing is one of the most important topics you can address today. About 2 years ago at PyCon, I met Brian Oken, who's just a super, super sweet, nice guy. And I started talking about testing. And it turns out like he's really into testing. He does a podcast called Test and Code. He also does the Python Bytes podcast, which is fantastic, about news in the Python community. Anyway, and he asked me what sort of testing I do. I was like, oh, I'm not actually that good about testing. He said, read my book about testing and about testing with PyTest, and you will see it's really easy. He was 100% right. PyTest is unbelievable. It's amazing. I started doing courses on PyTest. I was hoping to do like a live course at some point on PyTest the last month or two. Did not get a chance to do it with all the other things that were happening. So I'm probably going to be recording a course on PyTest in the coming months. And I also do it at companies. So if companies want me to teach PyTest, I can do that too. So the combination of PyTest and what's called MyPy for type checking is a pretty formidable like combination. And that plus exception handling, then you should be mostly okay. But all software has bugs, right? Also, it's just a matter of like trying to reduce them. Miron asks, is there a way to explain how to call directories, like web pages or external directories? When you say how to call directories, like how to get a list of files in a directory, like or how to like retrieve. I'm not sure exactly what you're asking for here. I'm sorry. If you maybe like put a few more details in there, I can try to answer a little better. But they're like, I mean, directories are sort of crucial to everything we do. I mean, because files are organized in directories, and directories are organized in directories. So we can always try to sort of retrieve from that. Typically, you would retrieve them or you would get them. There's the OS module, which we talked about. Oh, looking to do a dictionary. Oh, like take take a directory and turn to a dictionary. For that, I would suggest using what's known as a comprehension. And those are kind of complex, but they're also really useful. And you could like create a comprehension that creates a dictionary based on a directory of some sort. So hopefully that answers your question there. Okay, a few like descriptions, announcements, and so on and so forth. First of all, I have been talking about my book, Python Workout, since we started this course. And I've been telling you, oh my God, I've been editing. Oh my God, it's being printed. Oh my God, oh my God, oh my God. Well, folks, Python Workout. Oh, let me just, I guess it's in another window here. I'll just grab this and go over here. It is out. Woohoo! My book is out. It's going to be available in printed format, as they call it, a P-book on July 7th. I'm so excited. You can already get the PDF. I really have to say, I'm really excited about this book, and I'm extremely, extremely grateful to the people at Manning who helped me with it. They really, really did a great job helping me improve it, edit it, everything. They gave me a code to give to you folks for a discount on the book, so I will send that out. I don't remember what the code is, I have to look it up, but I will send that out in email, like a follow-up email from this course, so you don't have to pay full price or close to it. But like, boy, oh boy, I really, like, it's the product of 20 years of teaching Python and getting lots of feedback and questions from people and putting it together. So it's really, like, I'm so excited, I'm so happy. And I'm even already talking to them about doing another book, because I'm crazy. All right, so that's thing one. Thing two, all of you are probably hopefully on my mailing list. And I sent out something on a Wednesday night, the evening of the 1st, about this Humble bundle that is happening now. So let me open this up. So basically, Humble Bundle, if I understand correctly, they mostly do bundles of games. So like you want to buy a whole bunch of games, they go to a game author or game manufacturer, game publisher, and they say, we want to do a special deal. And the way it works is if you buy like their game thing, then you set your own price more or less. And you get, like, if you pay a little more, then you'll get more and more and more. So how does this have to do with me and Python? So about a month or two ago, Michael Kennedy, who runs the Talk Python podcast, he contacted me. He said, would you be interested in joining a Humble bundle for Python, learning Python? So basically, I'm going to mess up. I'm going to forget someone, but it's Michael, and it's me, and it's Trey Hunter, and it's Bob and Julian from PyBytes. And and Matt Harrison, and there are like 2 or 3 other people as well, plus PyCharm. Everyone like put in stuff together. So basically, this bundle, you can pay what you want. I believe if you pay $25, then you get all these courses, and all these courses, and all these courses and books. Right? It's like a ridiculously good deal. And all these courses are the full format. Like everyone has their own little thing. So in my case, the courses are like the video courses is object-oriented Python and what I call comprehending comprehensions. So those courses are the full ones that people would normally pay way, way, way more for, like usually $80 or was it $150. And some of these courses are similar video courses. Some of them are books. Some of them are like a certain number of weeks of how many exercises you get. And my third tier thing, my highest tier thing is one cohort of weekly Python exercise. Oh, wait, I remember Python exercise, sure. Which is like what I have for people to practice their Python. So Larry asked, like, so do I have, like, when I pay for this, am I signing up for membership? No. The Humble Bundle people will tell you, wouldn't you like to sign up for membership? Because they'd like to give you extra deals and extra discounts on games and so forth. If you want to sign up with a membership with them, totally fine. No obligation to do that whatsoever. You don't have to worry about that. You can just buy the thing and be done with it. And the thing is, when you pay, some of the money goes to the Humble Bundle people. Some of the money goes to people like me who are selling things. And some of the money goes to charity. And so the two charities that we're supporting here are the Python Software Foundation and Race Forward. And the PSF, as I mentioned before, runs the whole Python ecosystem. And Race Forward is an organization in the US trying to improve race relations at a whole bunch of different levels in a whole bunch of different ways. And we really thought it was important to support this sort of organization, especially nowadays with race relations as they are, as they are not in a great state. What can I say? So I would say if you're interested in improving your Python, and I realize that even $25 for some people is a lot, but if you can afford it, I would definitely encourage you to sign up for this. You'll get exposure to a lot of different courses, books, things, different instructors. And also my courses are never available for this little. So, and it's only available for another 19 days. So that is the Humble Bundle. Other questions, comments, thoughts, whatnot? All right, if there are no questions, then I'm going to say this was you want to learn web development. So I'm hoping in the coming year to put together a course in web development. I think Michael Kennedy had here, data-driven web apps with Flask and SQL Alchemy. I don't know if this is really for beginners. I'm assuming it is. And Michael's a really great teacher. So I'm going to hope/assume that we'll do some development, web development. I don't know 100%. I do hope to come up with something like that in the coming year, though. I've got like so much on my plate. Folks, this began as an experiment. This began as like, basically it was my wife's idea in many ways. We were talking about like, the world is crazy right now. It's sad, it's painful, it's scary. And I was like, what can I do, right? I'm a Python instructor. What can I do, to help people? People are at home, people are scared, people are like out of work. And I thought, you know what, I'll do this online course, make it free of charge. Who knows who will show up? 1,800 people, 1,900 people signed up for this thing. And we've had 30, 40, 50 in this live sessions, but I know there are a ton of people who are watching the videos who just couldn't make it for whatever reasons. This has been a phenomenal, fun, exciting experience for me. And I'm super grateful to you folks for signing up, for coming, for asking questions, for participating in the forum. It has been delightful. These videos, as I mentioned earlier, are going to be available forever. I might repackage them a little bit, still for free, but I'm playing with some like rejiggering of my online store and how I want to make things available. But like, this is always going to be available. If you know people who want to learn Python, tell about this course. And so I'm going to ask, my request, I'm going to put this in the email as well, is if you wouldn't mind, if you enjoyed this course and got a lot out of it, if you wouldn't mind sending me like some sort of like 2-sentence testimonial that I can put on the website so others will sign up and be excited about it and know what you got out of it. Like, that it was good, that you learned something, that you managed to level up your Python, go from nothing, whatever it is, whatever's worth it to you. Hearing from you would be really nice, and being able to tell other people about this course, even if it's in like a stasis, as it were, would be terrific. Sloan asked the question, what are the next courses we should take? What is the next step in the curriculum? No, I did not answer that yet. Look, I have, generally speaking, intro level courses and advanced level courses. This course is like, and the way I have it online, and this is what I'm rejiggering. I'm going to be rejiggering things into doing like packages, where I'm going to have like a beginner package and an advanced package and a data science package. Because people often go to my website, they're like, like, what do we do? And so my suggestion would be basically try, like, at least for my catalog, like the intro courses. The intro Python fundamentals course covers a bunch of the things that we did here, but it covers more also. It covers sort of more advanced stuff, covers more data structures, more methods in those data structures, how we want to do it, and more exercises. And in my intro courses, we have like fundamentals, we have functions, we have object-oriented programming. The object-oriented programming course is in the Humble Bundle, so don't buy that separately because like you can get it for way less. And I'm going to be coming out with some new courses, hopefully in the next 2 or 3 months. I'm really going to try to get some stuff on files, on modules, like we did here to fill out the beginner bundle. And then I'm going to sell that like as one chunk as opposed to separate pieces. But you know, I hope that answers the question. There's no clear answer anytime, right? At the end of the day, you're going to read some blogs, you read some newsletters. I'm going to try to put a bunch of resources in the email, follow-up email that I send as well with where you can go for more. Hopefully you will find your way. Hopefully this gave you a good stepping stone to know more, understand more, and also to enjoy it, right? To realize that programming can be frustrating, it can be annoying, but also going to be a source of incredible joy, and it's useful, right? How many things are both fun and useful at the same time? That's it, I guess. I'm gonna cry. Folks, thank you so much. This is really humbling, exciting, wonderful, and I appreciate you joining me for this journey. And I hope to see you in many, many more online courses and to hear from you in the future. Enjoy, be safe, be well, and all the best. Thanks so much, everyone. How do I stop this? Oh, the Zoom window is here. Oh, Krishnendu asked, can we read queries to you on email when we read your book? So the answer is, as always with me, yes and no. I typically get tons of email. So I either answer really, really fast or really, really slowly. Feel free to reach out to me, but be patient because I feel bad about it and I'm not always good about answering. So I'm sorry about that, but I will try. All right, folks, thanks so much. All the best. Hope to see you lots more.